within the IMF.
Honourable Leanne Dalziel.
My colleague, the Honourable Trevor Mallard, has raised a number of points, but he made a point earlier on about his absence from the House, which of course one would not normally refer to, but I wanted to explain why I too had been absent from the House at the commencement of this debate when the House resumed at 7:30. And the reason was that I wanted to see the end of the John Campbell program that was on television, because it related to some matters affecting my electorate and that of the Honourable Ruth Dyson with respect to a financial matter. So I think it is relevant to some extent, because the issues that were being raised actually transgress international financial understandings and actually obligations around property ownership. And if a government is compulsorily acquiring property, that there is an obligation to pay fair compensation. And in this particular instance, we had examples of the owners of land being offered by the government.
Just come back to Clause 7.
A mere 50% of their rating valuation. But and it was a really important issue for both of my electorate and Ruth Dyson's electorate, so I thought it was important to tell the House why I wasn't here on the dot of 7:30. The concern that I've got about the repeal of the International Finance Agreements Amendment Act 1975 follows on a lot from what my colleague had to say, and I haven't heard an explanation from the Minister and the Chair as to why this particular Amendment Act is being repealed, because of course the legislation itself actually sets out in legislation the financial support fund of the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, to which we would refer. And when I look at the objectives of the fund, which are to encourage and assist members to avoid unilateral measures which would restrict international trade or other current account transactions, or which would artificially stimulate visible and current invisible exports, and follow appropriate domestic and international economic policies, including adequate balance of payments policies and cooperative policies to promote increased production and conservation of energy. B, to serve for a limited period in view of current economic conditions, to supplement in exceptional cases other sources of credit to which members encountering serious economic difficulties have had recourse, and C, to ensure that the risks on loans by the fund to members are shared equitably among all members in proportion to their quotas and subject to the limits of their quotas, however the loans are financed. And it states that all decisions under this agreement shall be guided by these objectives. And what is not clear to me is whether or not this still stands with the repeal of the entire Amendment Act. And I think that may have been one of the points that my colleague, the Honourable Trevor Mallard was traversing in his contribution to this. And if it's not the case, then what is the case? I mean, how has this been dealt with in another way? And it does seem to me that the two questions are inextricably linked, because if we are to pass the legislation tonight, and of course we do actually have to pass this legislation, we don't really have any particular issue with not passing it, because you know, the reality is that the amendments that we have passed already through these committee stages don't empower developing countries as much as some have claimed, because the 85% rule that we've already addressed, that's required now, and all we're doing is updating the relevant legislation. But that doesn't seem to be clear on the face of it when we come to the repeal of International Finance Agreements Amendment Act 1975. In fact, the issue seems to be quite unclear, and I think that it would assist the House if the Minister could in fact address that particular issue. And obviously, because this fund has been an important element of the relationship that we've had with a number of other jurisdictions with whom we have a relationship in establishing and supporting this fund, I would like to know how the government has addressed this particular issue in order for us to feel confident that the Minister is able to address all these issues.
Dr Kennedy-Graham.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I rise to address the issue of Clause 7.